what your job title is and roughly explain what you have to do?
Yep, so I am a Geo-environmental Engineer and I specialise in ground contamination. So basically what that means is I go out to different places and I collect data from the field, so it might be samples or a description of what's there, that sort of thing. And then I use that data, I take it back to the office and I translate that into a report.
How does your job protect, promote or allow you to participate in the natural environment?
So the main way that I would say my job helps to protect the environment is most of the time there are two options when it comes to construction. You've either got brownfield land or you've got greenfield land. Greenfield land is, you know, the lovely open fields in the countryside that you don't really want to be building on because you want to preserve them as they are. Brownfield land, on the other hand, tends to be urban, so it tends to be within cities. It's often it's been developed beforehand, so it might have had warehouses on it or a factory,
Okay.
or something like that. And because of what's been on it previously, you have contamination in the ground. So that could be anything from metals or oil or other nasty things like that you don't really want to be there because they have potential to harm the environment. So what we do is we would do an investigation on that land, see what chemicals are there and how they could potentially harm the environment, assess it against some different criteria for protection of plants or protection of animals and fish and things like that, and then from there we can help advise a potential development company what needs to be done on the land to help to clean up that contamination, so that they can then build on it, which means that if they're building on that land, they're not going to be building on any of the greenfield land.
So that's how you protect the environment, basically.
Yeah.
Within the existing legislation, but you protect the greenfield sites from development.
Yeah.
Okay. How would you describe a typical workday or potentially week, if your job varies, which it might?
Yeah, I think probably with my job there isn't such a thing as a typical day. I generally spend between about 50-50 of my time split between being out on site and being in the office. So if I'm on site, a typical day might be, it's usually a relatively early start because you've got to get things going.
So just to clarify, sorry, what you mean by on site?
Okay, yeah. So a site can be anything from, it could be a bit of empty land that there's nothing there at the moment and we're going out to do an investigation to see what is there. If it's slightly further along in the construction process, we might go out just to make sure that they're doing things as we've told them to do. So that's sort of the site aspect of my job. In terms of when I'm back in the office, I get to the office about 9. I usually check my emails first thing and then write a list of all the things that I know I've got to get done that day. At any one time I can be working on multiple different projects, which is great for me because it means that there's a variety in the actual project itself, but also in the work that I'm doing on a daily basis.
Okay.
So different aspects of that might be the samples of soil that I sent off to the lab to be tested. I might have got those results back, so I've got to look at those and put them into a spreadsheet and check what levels of different contaminants that we've got against different criteria. So
Okay.
criteria that protect the environment. We would look at things that protect humans, things that protect plants, because some metals, for example, are toxic to plants. So if you had a plant trying to grow where there was lots of zinc in the soil, that plant just wouldn't grow, it would die.
Okay.
So you can't then carry on and hope to build things and plant things if all the plants are going to die anyway. So it's generally things like that. Work with some data, and then do a bit of report writing. So we've got to write a report on our findings, which would then get sent to our client.
What about salary? That's probably something that people might be interested in knowing. Is that something that you're familiar with your own, but?
Yeah, I mean, sort of so entry level jobs in the industry that I work in can be quite variable depending on the company. But I would say, sort of, to give a range, it's probably starting between 18 and 25,000.
Eleanor, what do you enjoy most about your job?
There's a couple of things I would say that I really, really love about my job. One is the variety. So I work on lots of different projects in lots of different places. All of those projects they're just different. They've got different problems, different solutions. You make different recommendations, and I love that variety. The variety in project and the variety in the actual work that I'm doing. It just means I'm kept on my toes all the time and I'm constantly learning, and I think that's fantastic. The other thing I really love about my job is I like to talk, and I get to meet loads of different people from all different backgrounds, all different countries, and I've just learned so much. I've learned a lot about them as individuals and, you know, the country that they're from, but I've also learned about different parts of construction that I didn't know about.
What skills or personality traits do you think would suit this job?
I think definitely being able to communicate. That's really, really important, because you have to communicate all the time, whether it's within your project team at work. So each project will have a team, so I might be the project engineer on that team, and then I'd have a project manager and a project director. So it's important that you communicate with them well so that you know exactly what you need to do. It's then important that you can communicate with the client so you know exactly what they want. And it's also important to be able to communicate with the people that you're with on site. The other thing that is really important is being willing to learn and being brave enough to ask a question. I think it's so important. I've learned everything about my job since I started. I didn't know anything really until I started work on that first day.
But presumably they gave you a fair amount of training, didn't they?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've had training from the start, and any time I was unsure about something, I would ask. And I think people respect you so much more when you can go and ask that question, because people want to help and they want to make sure that you know what you're doing and you're happy with it. And you've just got to be brave enough to do that, and you'll reap all of the rewards.
That's really good advice, thank you. What GCSEs did you take that were important for this job, or are there any that you wish you had taken?
Okay, so I took, at GCSE I took the standard core subjects, so I did maths, English, science. At the time I also took what was then called additional science. The other subjects I took were geography, history, French and Spanish. If I hadn't have taken geography and the additional science at GCSE, then I wouldn't have been able to take sciences and geography when I got to A-level.
The next question is, what A-level choices did you take, and again, were they helpful for getting the actual job, or the day-to-day management of your job, or not?
Yeah, so I suppose that sort of follows on really. So when I got to A-level, I decided instead of doing A-levels, I did the International Baccalaureate, which is an A-level equivalent. So I had to do 6 subjects, which they split them into 3 higher subjects and 3 standards. So your higher subjects are equivalent to an A-level, and then your standard subjects is more similar to an AS level. And of those, my 3 higher subjects were English, geography and chemistry. And that was really important that I chose to do that, because when I applied to university, my university wanted me to have two of those sciences at higher level, and it was geography that they counted as a science then, so I got in with the chemistry and the geography.
So I think it's important to know, isn't it, that your education is a bit of a cascade effect. So it might not seem very important at GCSE or A-level, but if you don't necessarily have them, it's going to stop you getting the right degree for the right job.
Yeah, definitely. So it's sort of it seems like you're thinking really far ahead, but actually you just want to make sure really that you don't restrict yourself by your choices at GCSE.
Maybe you could just tell us what degree you did actually take.
Yeah, so I took I studied geology, which is it's basically the study of rocks and the history of the planet. So you study quite a wide range of things, from how different rocks form, volcanoes and earthquakes and how that sort of develops, dinosaurs, fossils. It is really quite wide ranging, and I studied that at Southampton. So having the geography was very useful because I had already studied volcanoes and I'd already studied earthquakes, and so I had kind of a basic knowledge of certain things that I then studied in depth in my degree, and the chemistry was then helpful in certain subjects as well.
How did geology help you in your job? Are there any practical aspects of the degree that you carried forward into your work life?
Yeah, I think the main thing that you learn when you do a degree like geology is how to go out into the field, collect data, because that's what we would do. We would look at the rocks, we'd measure them, describe them, and then come back from the field and write a report about it. And that's essentially what I do now in my job. I go out to site, collect data, and then I come back, use that data to write a report. So in terms of like the very essence, I suppose, of my job is what I spent 3 years doing at degree level.
Eleanor, I'd just like to say a big thank you for coming to Project Inspire and giving us your words of wisdom for everyone to hear.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been really, really helpful. And you're off doing a Masters now, I hear.
Yes,
so
I am, yeah.
Next step of your life, and I wish you all the best with that, because that's obviously a big step in your life, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. That would be great, yeah.
Okay.